escalated very quickly. Yesterday we were talking about NFL players potentially going back to college. This morning, the Big Ten basically said, absolutely not. And now, just hours later, the SEC has banned it too. So within basically 24 hours, we've gone from wondering whether NFL players returning to college could become the next crazy trend in college football to two of the biggest conferences in the sport stepping in and trying to shut it down. And that is just the beginning of what we're talking about today. I've also got the 5 college football programs under the most pressure in 2026. I've got 3 teams that I think are overrated and 3 that I think are underrated. And finally, I'm making myself the commissioner of college football and changing 5 things about the sport. So let's get into it. This might be one of the quickest responses to a controversy that we've seen in college football. If you watched yesterday's video, you already know how we got here. Former Ole Miss tight end Dae'Quan Wright went through NFL training camp and played in the preseason with the Cleveland Browns. He was waived. Normally, that's where the college part of his football career would obviously be over. Except this time. A Louisiana court ruling opened the door for Wright and several other players to receive another season of college eligibility, and Wright reached an agreement to join LSU. Another former Ole Miss player, defensive lineman Xavier Hurts, has signed with the New Orleans Saints before being waived and also committed to LSU. So suddenly Lane Kiffin was potentially adding players to LSU's roster who had already signed NFL contracts. And college football basically lost its mind because everyone immediately realized where this could potentially go. Could college coaches start watching NFL roster cuts? Could somebody play 3 NFL preseason games, get released, then go play in the SEC? Could we basically create a reverse transfer portal between the NFL and college football? Well, the Big Ten decided that this morning that the answer is no. The conference unanimously adopted a rule preventing players who have entered the professional ranks from returning to play at a Big Ten school. If you signed a professional contract, appeared on a professional roster, or declared for the NFL draft as an underclassman without withdrawing, you can't come back and play in the Big Ten. And they aren't messing around with enforcement either. If a Big Ten team violates the rule, the head coach can be suspended for 50% of the team's remaining games, and the school can also be fined. But then the attention immediately turned toward the SEC, because that's where the controversy is actually happening. LSU is the team trying to add these players, and initially the SEC released a statement strongly opposing professional athletes returning to college. But now they've gone further. The SEC has approved a ban of its own. So now the 2 most powerful conferences in college football have both drawn a line. You go pro, you're not coming back. And honestly, I agree with them. I'm usually very supportive of giving college athletes more freedom. Players should make more money. Players should be able to transfer. Players deserve a significant piece of the massive amount of money college sports generate. But college eligibility has to end somewhere. And I think signing a professional contract is a pretty reasonable place to put that line. If you declare for the NFL draft, sign with an NFL team, go through NFL training camp, play preseason football, and then get released, I don't think you should be able to go, all right, I'll go back to college. At that point, you made the decision to become a professional athlete. And I don't blame Dae'Quan Wright for trying to take advantage of the opportunity. I don't blame Xavier Harris. And honestly, I don't even blame Lane Kiffin. If the courts say these guys are eligible and you're trying to build the best roster possible, of course coaches are going to look into it. The problem is the system that allowed everybody to get into this situation in the first place. And now we're in an extremely interesting situation with LSU. Because the SEC itself has now adopted a rule specifically designed to prevent this from happening. So what happens to these LSU additions? That's now one of the biggest questions surrounding this entire story. And I wouldn't assume this is over just because the conference has passed rules. We've already seen how college sports work now. Eligibility rule, lawsuit, court ruling, new rule, another lawsuit, and repeat. I would not be surprised whatsoever if these conferences' rules eventually get changed too. But for now, the message from the Big Ten and SEC is pretty clear. The NFL to college pipeline is closed. Now let's move from eligibility chaos to something else college football is extremely good at. putting completely unreasonable amounts of pressure on people. These aren't necessarily my 5 coaches most likely to get fired. I'm ranking 5 programs where I think the pressure is the highest entering the 2026 season. Expectations, recent performance, money, roster investment, fan expectations, and what happens if everything goes wrong. Starting with number 5, Alabama. And Alabama being number 13 in the preseason poll is actually part of the reason they're here. For most programs, starting number 13 in America is great. At Alabama, people start asking what the hell happened. That's what the Nick Saban era did to expectations in Tuscaloosa. For more than a decade, Alabama wasn't expected to have a good season. They were expected to win the national championship. And replacing Saban was always going to be almost impossible, but eventually Alabama has to prove that the post-Saban's version of this program can consistently compete with Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, and the other elite programs in college football. Another year of Alabama just being pretty good isn't going to satisfy people. Number 4 on this list, I have Texas. Texas enters the 2026 season ranked 5th in the country, and we're past the point where Texas can celebrate simply being back. They're back. Now, win something. Texas has the recruiting, they have the money, they have the facilities, they have the fan support. They basically have every resource imaginable. When you're starting number 5 in America, making the college football playoff isn't some crazy dream. It's the expectation. Texas has built itself back into a legitimate national championship contender. Now they need to finish the job. Number 3, I got LSU. Well, as if LSU needed more pressure after everything we just talked about. Lane Kiffin is now in Baton Rouge. LSU went 7-6 last season. They went out and hired one of the biggest names in college football. They attacked the transfer market. They're ranked number 11 entering 2026, and everything about this situation screams win now. Obviously, Kiffin isn't going to get fired because he doesn't win the national championship in year 1. But LSU has won national championships with 3 different head coaches this century. The expectation in Baton Rouge isn't 8 wins and a decent bowl game, it's championships. You don't bring Lane Kiffin to LSU to be average. Number 2, I got Wisconsin. Now we get into serious job security territory. Luke Fickell needs to win. Wisconsin hired Fickell expecting him to modernize the program and eventually get the Badgers back toward the top of the Big Ten. It hasn't happened. And we're reaching the point where give it more time isn't going to work anymore. Wisconsin doesn't need to win the Big Ten this year. They don't need to make the national championship, but they need to show real progress. Because another bad season could force Wisconsin to make a very difficult decision. And my number 1, I got Florida State. Mike Norvell enters 2026 under enormous pressure, and it's crazy how quickly things have changed. Not that long ago, it looked like Florida State was becoming a national powerhouse again. Then everything fell apart. Last season started with a huge win against Alabama. Florida State opened 3-0, and then the season went completely sideways. Florida State isn't a program where you're going to get unlimited time. The recruiting territory is too good, the brand is too big, the expectations are too high. The program expects to compete for ACC championships and college football playoff appearances. If Florida State has another terrible year, we could easily be talking about a coaching search. So Florida State is my number 1 program under pressure entering 2026. Alright, time to make some fan bases angry. 3 overrated teams, 3 underrated teams. And remember, overrated does not mean bad. If I'm calling the number 5 team overrated, I'm not saying they're going 6-6. I'm saying I don't believe they're actually the 5th best team in America. First up, Texas at number 5. And yes, I just talked about how much talent they have. Texas can absolutely make the college football playoff. They can absolutely compete for the SEC. But number 5 feels slightly aggressive. Preseason polls have loved Texas before. I need to see them prove they're unquestionably one of the 5 best teams in America before I'm completely buying it. Next, Texas A&M. This is another simple one. Show me. The talent is here. The resources are there. The money is definitely there. But number 8 means we're talking about a legitimate national championship contender. Texas A&M has spent years being a program where the resources say they should be elite. Now the results need to match. Finally, USC. They're tied at number 14, and I'm still not sold. USC is always going to have talent. They're always going to have offensive weapons. But playing in the Big Ten is difficult. You've got Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, Michigan, Penn State, Iowa, Washington. You have to survive that conference every week. USC needs to prove to me that they can do that before I'm buying them as a top 15 team. Now let's go the other direction. Underrated is Indiana at number 6. Come on, they went 16-0, they won the national championship, and they're number 6? I understand the roster isn't identical. Fernando Mendoza is gone. There are important pieces to replace, but Curt Cignetti has earned some benefit of the doubt. I'm not saying Indiana automatically deserves number 1 because they won last year, but 6? I'm giving the undefeated national champions a little more respect than that. And somehow we're talking about LSU again. They're number 11, and I think their ceiling is significantly higher. Lane Kiffin is now coaching one of the most naturally talented programs in America. He's got resources, he's got recruiting, he's got the transfer portal. And apparently for a couple days, he thought he had the Cleveland Browns too. We'll see how that works out now, but if Kiffin gets LSU's offense going quickly, this team could become extremely dangerous. Yes, Alabama is both under pressure and underrated, because number 13 still feels weird. This program continues to recruit elite talent, the roster is still loaded, and I think people might be overcorrecting because Alabama isn't dominating the sport like they did under Nick Saban. They're not that Alabama anymore, but they're still Alabama. And I would absolutely not want to see them sitting across from me in a playoff game. Finally, college football apparently can't agree on anything, so screw it. I'm commissioner now, and I've got 5 changes. Well, apparently the Big Ten and SEC already stole my first idea. If you sign a professional playing contract after leaving college, your college eligibility is over. Simple, clear, everybody knows the rule. No NFL waiver wire recruiting, no NFL preseason on Saturday, and SEC football a few weeks later. Once you officially become a professional player, your college career is finished. And while we're at it, completely rewrite the eligibility rules so players don't have to file lawsuits just to figure out whether they're allowed to play. My second change is fix the transfer portal. I'm not eliminating the portal. Players deserve the ability to transfer. Coaches can leave whenever somebody offers them a better job. Players should have mobility too. But give me actual structure. No portal in the middle of the season. Stop changing the calendar constantly. Give the players freedom while giving programs some roster stability. My third change is stop destroying conferences. I want geography to matter again. USC and UCLA in the Big Ten, Cal and Stanford in the ACC. Come on. Conference realignment has sacrificed regional rivalries and tradition for television money. I'm not saying we have to perfectly recreate college football from 30 years ago, but conferences should make geographic sense. Protect rivalries, keep regional opponents together. Those traditions are a massive reason college football has become popular in the first place. Number 4, simplify the college football playoff. Give me a straightforward playoff format, clear qualification rules, reward conference championships, and most importantly, protect the regular season. I don't want college football becoming the sport where you can lose 3 or 4 games and shrug because you're probably making the playoffs anyway. Every Saturday should matter. That's what separates college football from basically every other American sport. Finally, if you want to compete for a national championship, play somebody. Every Power 4 program should have to play at least one Power 4 non-conference opponent every year. Personally, I'd prefer 2. Give me Ohio State, Texas, Michigan, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Miami, Georgia, Clemson. Give us huge games in September. We only get so many college football Saturdays every year. Stop wasting them by games where one team is favored by 45 points. So apparently my first act as college football commissioner has already been passed by the Big Ten and SEC. You're welcome. But seriously, the NFL to college situation went from a weird court case to potentially a massive loophole to the 2 biggest conferences in college football taking action in basically a matter of days. And I don't think this story is finished, because now we have to see what happens with Dae'Quan Wright, Xavier Harris, LSU, and any legal challenges that come from these new conference rules. So let me know down below, do you agree with the SEC and Big Ten? Should signing a professional contract permanently end your college eligibility? And while you're down there, give me your most overrated and underrated teams entering 2026. Tomorrow we finally get into week 0 predictions, so make sure you're subscribed if you don't want to miss that. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment down below about the things I just said about 5, 10, 15, whatever seconds ago. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for my prediction.